They say in the kingdom of Caer Thorne, the crown does not follow blood. It follows truth. And once every 100 years, when the king dies under a moonless sky, the throne is left empty, not to be claimed by lineage, but to be chosen by light. This is the story of how a boy with no name became the only one the crown ever whispered to. No one saw who left him at the gates. It was the coldest dawn of the season, fog curling along the stones, raven silent on the battlements. Wrapped in nothing but old linen and a brass token with no inscription, the baby was found asleep on a pile of ash, just outside the servants' entrance. He didn't cry. He didn't move. But when the old cook lifted him up, the wind around them stopped, as if the world itself held its breath. They named him Ash, for the way he was found. He was never granted a surname. Never baptized. Never recorded. He grew up in the shadow of chimneys and hearths, scraping soot, fetching kindling, boiling water for nobles who didn't know his face. He wasn't allowed near the dining halls, let alone the throne rooms. He had no lessons, no tutors, no claim. And yet, he watched. He listened. And he remembered everything. By 10, he could mimic the accent of every noble house. By 12, he had memorized the names of every forgotten king from the statues in the East Corridor. By 15, he could walk through the royal library blindfolded and tell which scroll sat where by the smell of dust. But there was something else, something even the oldest servants couldn't explain. Ash had a habit of talking to the statues. Not like a mad boy, but like an heir checking in on old friends. Once, the guards caught him pressing his palm to the base of a forgotten obelisk in the garden, the one with no name carved into its surface. They beat him, of course. Dragged him back to the scullery, bleeding and silent. But he never explained why he did it. He never had to. Because that night, lightning struck the obelisk, though the skies were clear, and split it clean down the middle. The maids said he had the eyes of someone waiting for something. The old blacksmith said his voice reminded him of a dead prince. The stable master once whispered, after too much wine, that Ash was marked, not cursed, not blessed, just meant. But meant for what? Ash himself didn't know. He didn't want anything. He never asked. Until the night the king died. King Thorian IV, last of his line, breathed his final breath on a moonless night, just as the silver bell in the northern tower struck midnight. The palace did not mourn. It waited. Because the ancient law of Caer Thorne stated, no heir shall be named until the crown reflects its light upon the rightful soul. The nobles gathered. The priests prepared the mirror. And Ash? He was told to scrub the floors before sunrise. He obeyed. As he always had. But fate doesn't care for obedience. It only waits for the right moment to speak. And when it does, it doesn't whisper. It shines. The selection was meant to be sacred. Once every century, and only when the old king died under a moonless sky, the crowning mirror was removed from its vault. Forged not of silver, nor gold, but of stormglass, said to hold the breath of the gods. It sat in a chamber so silent, even the tapestries seemed to hold their weave. No voices were allowed. No names were spoken. Only reflections mattered. By ancient law, each noble house sent forth their most worthy, sons trained in swordplay, daughters schooled in diplomacy, bastards rumored to carry royal blood. One by one, they stood before the mirror. One by one, the light did nothing. The priestess overseeing the ritual grew restless. The nobles exchanged wary glances. Even the High Chancellor cleared his throat once, which, in this chamber, felt like blasphemy. Still, the mirror remained dark. Downstairs, in a lesser corridor no royal foot had ever touched, Ash was scrubbing soot from the marble tiles outside the main hall. He wasn't thinking about destiny. He was thinking about the bucket of water he had spilled when the king's procession passed the night before. He wanted to do his job, and vanish like the ghost they all treated him as. But fate had different plans. A knight young, frustrated, in search of someone to blame, flung the side door open and barked. "You! The floor's not finished. Get inside." Ash grabbed his bucket and rag and crossed the threshold. Not knowing it was the mirror chamber. Not knowing every noble eye would soon be upon him. not knowing the air would change the moment he stepped inside. At first, no one noticed him. A servant in gray, rag in hand, dust on his boots. But the moment he passed within 10 feet of the mirror, it sang. Not aloud. Not with music. But with vibration, a hum that resonated through the bones. The mirror lit from the inside, casting pale light across the floor, then upward, toward Ash. He froze. His hands trembled. The priestess dropped her staff. And the High Chancellor whispered, "That is not possible." Ash turned, confused, ready to apologize. But the mirror held his face, clearly, perfectly, as if it had been waiting centuries to remember him. One noble stepped forward in disbelief. "He's a servant." Another hissed. "He's not even registered." And yet, the crown, the ancient one, resting atop the pedestal beside the mirror, began to vibrate. The old priestess, with shaking hands, recited the line none of them ever thought they'd hear in their lifetime. "The crown has seen its heir. Let none deny the chosen." A silence followed, thick, choking, fragile. And then came the voice of the regent queen, widow of King Thorian. Cold, measured, venom hidden in velvet. "That boy is filth. He bears no crest, no blood, no right. This ritual is broken. This is a trick." But the mirror did not dim. And the crown did not stop humming. Instead, it rose slightly from its pedestal, levitating just an inch, glowing faint blue at the base. Ash took a step back. He didn't want this. He didn't understand it. But destiny is rarely polite. It simply moves through time until someone is unafraid to meet its gaze. 2 guards moved to remove him. The priestess blocked their path. The nobles began to argue, the voices rising into shouts, threats, curses. But Ash looked straight into the mirror. And for a brief moment, in the reflection behind him, he saw not himself, but a child, newborn, wrapped in linen, placed on a bed of ash. A hand he didn't recognize placed a token in the child's blanket. And then the mirror cracked. Not shattered, just a single line, running across its surface like lightning in glass. The priestess fainted. The crown fell silent. And Ash was led away. Not in chains. Not in celebration. But in silence, the kind that comes just before a storm. They locked him in the silent tower, not to punish, but to decide. For 3 days, Ash sat in a room with no doors, only one narrow window, too high for escape. No food. No water. No light. Yet he did not fade. He dreamed. Not of flames or fear, but of marble floors, warm sunlight, and a woman with silver eyes and a voice like snow. You were born to be forgotten because you were born to return. On the 4th night, a sound broke the silence. Not footsteps. Not voices. But stone grinding against stone. A section of the wall cracked open behind him, revealing a narrow spiral staircase lit by flickering torches. At the bottom, no guards. No servants. Only a door carved from blackwood, marked with an ancient crest, a phoenix wrapped in thorns. Ash touched it. The door opened. Inside was a chamber untouched by time. Dust floated like stars. Books lined every wall. A single scroll rested atop a pedestal of white marble, sealed with blood wax. He should have turned away. But something in him, something older than fear, told him he'd seen this before. So he reached out. And the wax melted. The scroll was a royal ledger. Not of land. Not of war. But of birthrights. At the top, House Carian, final lineage. Below it, 2 names had been burned away, scorched into illegibility. But beneath that, one name remained. Oshrian Carian, 2nd son of King Thorian and Queen Elione. Date of birth, the night of the Ash Reign. Status, deceased, unconfirmed. His hands trembled. His knees gave way. He sat on the cold floor and stared at the name, his name, until the candle beside him sputtered out. He had not been abandoned. He had been erased. The Queen Regent, the one who called him filth, was not his stepmother. She had been the midwife. Elevated to queen only after Queen Eleone vanished under mysterious circumstances. The rumors of a stillborn royal child were lies. The coup had happened not with swords, but with ink, whispers, and fear. Ash wasn't a servant boy chosen by mistake. He was the heir that had been stolen, hidden in soot and silence. As he left the chamber, the torches relit on their own. The door closed behind him without sound. And something ancient moved through the palace walls. That night, the royal chapel bells rang, though no one had touched them. And in the gallery of statues, the hall of bloodlines, something even more impossible happened. The statues turned. Not all. Just 3. The final 3 kings. Each with their heads now bowed, facing the throne chamber as if awaiting someone. The next morning, Ash was brought before the court. He did not speak. He did not kneel. He simply walked to the throne that had rejected every noble before him, and placed one hand on the armrest. The throne glowed. Not bright. Not grand. Just enough. A faint hum filled the room, the same hum that echoed centuries ago, the last time a true Carian sat upon that seat. And then, the crown lifted again. Only this time, it did not float in search. It turned, and bowed, as if nodding. No one dared move. No one dared deny it. Later, they would call it the silent coronation. No priestess. No choir. No feast. Just a boy, now a man, sitting on a throne that remembered what no one else did. They say he ruled not with vengeance, but with vision. That he never raised his voice, only his gaze. And that under his reign, no mirrors were ever covered, and no child was ever left unnamed. But the truth? The truth is simpler, and far more dangerous. The crown does not choose. It remembers. And what it remembers, it eventually reclaims. He was never a servant. He was always the storm waiting in the soot.